Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Books with Meena, or like welcome if you're new here. I am Meena and I talk about books. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I have read recently, and by recently I mean in the past like 4 to 5 months, because I haven't posted a video in like the past 4 to 5 months, maybe even 6 months, and I haven't also read quite a lot in the past 4 to 5, maybe 6 months. I have basically read like 6 to 7 books, which is not a lot for me, but I know that, it's enough. Whatever, I did what I could, and we'll just like jump right into the video. So, book number 1, People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. And this one is romance contemporary. It's about these two best friends who met in college, and they have been best friends for like about 12 years, and they had a falling apart 2 years ago. And the main character, Poppy, she is the more like wild child, fun, spontaneous, loves traveling. And then we have Alex, who is the more like serious, reserved, loves a stable lifestyle kind of person. So Poppy, who's the main character, we get everything from her point of view. She decides to plan this like spontaneous trip where both of them can reconnect and hash out their differences or whatever happened a couple of years ago. And that is where this book starts. I gave this one like a 3.5. I enjoyed this way more than Beach Read, which was also written by Emily Henry, and also has like a similar vibe to it, where it's very much like, is it women's fiction, is it contemporary, or is it like romance? It definitely has elements of both of these genres, where the women are the main characters, and there's like a pretty important plot which includes romance. There's a lot about like discovering yourself, and a lot about like just life in general. People We Meet on Vacation focused a lot on like a midlife crisis type of a situation, because the main character, Poppy, is a travel blogger or writer, and she is quite burnt out of her job. She doesn't feel that happiness anymore, even though she started out with this being her like dream job. It fits her personality perfectly to be a travel writer, because she can travel to new places, write about them, have a really fun, adventurous life. But now that she is 30 or nearing 30, I would say, she just doesn't feel that way anymore. And I think those parts of the book were done so well, with Alex and Poppy, just them being separate people or characters on their own. Because oftentimes in books where it's like friends to lovers, opposites attract, a lot of the time I just feel like the characters themselves don't have any distinct personalities. It's mostly like the author or the book playing off of them being such opposites or contrasts, and it's usually used as like humor, comedic effect, that kind of thing, to put out their differences and how just different they are from each other. And in this book, while that was done too, using Poppy and Alex's different personalities, their polar opposites, as like comedic effect, but at the same time they felt like their own people who were doing their own things, going through their own journeys and stuff. As for the romance, it was sweet, it was well done, it's friends to lovers. I typically enjoy a book where it's basically two people meeting, becoming friends, falling in love. I think that trope was used well in this book. I will say my two main critiques for this book was, first, it felt very dragged out. The book is like really long in my opinion, because we not only get like present day, the plot of present day Poppy and Alex meeting and hashing out the differences and blah blah blah. We also get Poppy and Alex like 12 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. We keep getting these flashbacks in alternate chapters where they first met, and them going on these like different trips, and just being in each other's lives over the past 10 to 12 years. And it just felt a little too much, these flashbacks. I felt like they should have been maybe just like 1 or 2 flashbacks throughout the whole book. That could have shortened the book by a considerable amount. Also, one more critique I would have for this book is that the conflict which happened a couple of years ago, which drove the two characters apart, wasn't revealed until like the 85% mark of the book. And I just don't get why it was kept from the readers for so long, because it just felt, I mean, I don't want to call it like minor or immature, but it just felt so predictable. And I've seen this kind of conflict in so many books before that I just don't know why it had to be kept as like this big surprise, or to be held on to for so long. And why couldn't the readers just know about it like right off the bat? And I think just another thing with this book, And I don't know if it's like just a me thing, or if it's maybe the characters were unlikable. Sometimes I found Poppy to be so unlikable when she would like go off on her tangents about like being lonely and nobody understanding her. I get it, like people feel that way, and I shouldn't like invalidate those kind of experiences, but this also happened in Beach Read. And whenever the characters would like go off on these tangents about like not being understood and being different and like feeling lonely, I get it, but like also it just didn't feel that authentic to me, or maybe that's not the correct word I should be using. It just felt really forced, and I just could not connect or relate or feel anything for the characters when they would like go off on these tangents. But otherwise, this book was really sweet, good. I enjoyed it. It was like a fun time. It had some like really cute, sweet, romantic moments, and Emily Henry always delivers on the writing style, because I think before this she used to write like magical realism, and that I can really see that in her contemporary romance books, where the writing is just like the right amount of flowery and descriptive that makes the story more elevated, I guess. Next book that I read was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. So as you can see, there's like a little bit of a pattern here. I've been reading a lot of romances, and honestly they have been the one genre that has not let me down in terms of like me being able to read these books really fast and quickly, and them also being easy to read. So the Heart Principle, did I say Kiss Quotient? I think, yeah, The Heart Principle, that's the third book in the series. And this one is the third book in the Kiss Quotient series, and this one follows Kwan, who is he was there as a side character in the previous books. We see him a lot. He's like a very, I would say, he was there a lot for comedic effect. He was the best friend. He was he was described to be like really handsome and has tattoos and like is a playboy, that kind of shit. And then we have Anna, who is a new character who is introduced as the love interest in this book, and obviously she's also one of the main characters. She is a violinist. She has recently discovered that she is on the autism spectrum, and also that her family is just like not very supportive of her. Her boyfriend like wants to have an open relationship, and she does not know what to do with that. So she decides to go on a series of like one night stands to like better figure out what she wants in life in general, I guess. And she just wants to like be more free, independent, that kind of stuff. And this book was just, so if you're looking for a feel-good romance, which was what I was looking for in this book, it's not that. It's quite heavy, it's quite emotional, and I can appreciate that in a book, like it covering some difficult topics, talking about some more heavy, serious stuff, and the main focus of the book being those parts. But I just don't know if this book carried it off well, because Anna has, she has recently discovered that she is on the autism spectrum, and there's like a bunch of stuff going on in this book. Kwan, who was like previously such a joyful, more like laid back kind of character in the previous books, in this book he is more reserved. He has recently gone through cancer and recovered from it, so he is quite a different person. He is like emotionally scarred and is like feeling insecure about himself. Anna also like is just so downtrodden by the people in her life who just like don't want to support her. They're just like being really insensitive and not listening. There was a lot going on in this book, and I could have potentially liked it a lot, but I didn't. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, and the romance was like a pretty typical Helen Hoang kind of romance, if you know what I mean, where the characters see each other and they immediately like find each other like super attractive and hot, and the sex scenes were like quite steamy, although also a bit awkward at times. But I think different people will have different expectations or preferences for whatever kind of sex scene they read in a book. The characters themselves felt like they were just like a summation of all their trauma and all the hardships that they were going through. And maybe I don't know if I'm like the correct person to be talking about this book or the kind of characters and situations that were written in this book, because I haven't really gone through most of it, I would say. So, but overall, the romance didn't do it for me. It felt too insta-lovey. I just didn't get why Anna and Kwan were so head over heels for each other like so quickly. And even the other like more emotional heavy parts about their personal journeys and personal lives weren't done that well that I could like root for them as separate individuals and characters. So yeah, this book just did not work out for me, and I have been seeing a lot of people giving it mixed reviews, where some people either love it, some people don't, and I definitely fall in the more of the latter category. The third book that I read, and I think I read this back in September, and I definitely like, this is probably my most favorite book of 2021, and that is The Beautiful Ones by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This one is, I would describe this to be Jane Austen, except more romance, more drama, there's even some fantasy, just more of everything, minus the sarcastic, witty, funny kind of writing style. The writing style in this book was much more like graceful and, just like more flowy, I would say. It's the kind of writing style just like draws you in and you keep wanting to read more. Basically, it's like descriptive but not too descriptive is how I would summarize it. Yeah. As for the plot of this book, I went into this like knowing almost nothing, because the Goodreads premise does not give away a lot about the plot, and I went into this expecting like lots of drama, some like morally great characters, some like kind of bad stuff happening to our main characters, and the book was that, but at the same time it wasn't also. I would say like the basic bare bones of this book is a pretty simple, sweet romance story, and I am a sucker for romance. In any kind of book, any kind of setting, I think we all love a little bit of romance, and I would have liked this book as a romance itself, but it also like was also like it was a commentary on like society, and then there's also some like fantasy mixed into the world. So at the same time, while it is definitely a simple romance story, people meet each other, they talk, very much like a Jane Austen novel where there's not a lot of plot. People just like meet each other, they talk, they get to know each other, stuff happens, and like there's like a happily ever after, I would say. This book has that formula, but like within what happens within the pages and like with the characters in some ways was also, I wouldn't exactly call it subversive. So I have rambled on about this book so long without really telling you what it is about, because that just shows how much I loved this book. If you didn't know, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So we are following Antonina, who is this like debutante. She's 19, if I'm not wrong. She's a debutante. She's more naive and innocent. She's not really having a good time in the main society, trying to find a match or a husband for herself, because she is known to be clumsy. She has this power of like telekinesis where she can move things with her mind. Then we have Valerie, who is Antonina's cousin's wife, and Valerie is quite the opposite, where she's very prim, proper, people follow her. She is like the perfect image of feminine beauty, also like just everything, propriety, feminine beauty, everything, like she's perfect. And then we have Hector, who is the love interest, and it's kind of like a love triangle sort of, and Hector is your he's very stoic, he's reserved, he's a little confused about himself and about his decisions in general. And when I say this book is not exactly subversive, it's because it does explore themes of like, the different kinds of characters or tropes that we tend to see in a romance novel, where, you have the young, wide-eyed, really like, pure, innocent girl matched with the more like hardened by life, scarred by life hero. And then we have like the mean girl thrown in, who's like jealous and conniving and manipulative. And while these characters fit these archetypes, they also like never subvert it really. This book does question these tropes and archetypes, but when I say it doesn't subvert them, what I mean is that Valerie doesn't really like doesn't like somehow grow a heart of pure gold by the end of the book, or we don't really get to see her like suddenly being like, oh, I'm actually like a really nice person deep inside. That doesn't ever happen. But what we do get to see is Valerie being why she is the way she is, why she has to be like so prim and proper, and why she is so bitter about certain things in life and about the choices that she had to make. And so basically the characters, they don't really like change that much throughout the book. The innocent young woman doesn't turn out to be like this like insane, conniving, cunning manipulator, but we do get to see that we do get to see a full 360 view of these characters and why the way they are. Yeah, so I've talked about the writing, the characters, everything was done well, but this book just wouldn't be what it is without the romance. The romance was so sweet. At times I was like, do I even ship these people? Should I be shipping these people? I don't know. But eventually I shipped them so much, and I was so happy with the way things panned out. And the romance, like, well, when I said this book doesn't really have a lot of plot, it doesn't, but at the same time I was like constantly at the edge of my seat waiting to see what happened next, because truly this book felt so unpredictable. And some people would not call it a romance because it's it's a little heavy on some other elements with society and commentary and that kind of stuff, and I get that, but there is definitely a romantic plot thread throughout this book, and it really satisfied me. Not quite sure how it would feel for other people given some of the characters' choices and them being morally gray and making some like really questionable decisions. I'm looking at you, Hector Aubrey, you did some bad shit, anyways. Yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely recommend this. This is the kind of book that I would like go back to and reread when I'm looking for something cozy, comforting, and just something that will bring me joy. The 4th book that I read was The Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds, and this one is YA contemporary, but with a mix of sci-fi twist. It's basically a Groundhog's Day situation almost, because the main character, he meets this girl called Kate, instantly like falls in love, but she dies after a couple of months, and then he is left heartbroken. But then he wakes up again 4 months earlier to when he first met her, and this keeps happening every time Kate dies, and every time the main character, he wakes up 4 months earlier, and he's trying to save her. And that is where the book starts. I think this one, I gave this one like a 4.5. It doesn't really do anything new in terms of being a YA contemporary-ish coming-of-age novel where topics like first love and going to college, leaving your family, friendship, like these topics are discussed and they're done well, but it's not anything new or mind-blowing. Where this book succeeds is with its pacing, because it is like the pacing is just breakneck. Things keep happening, and the author, the book, really uses this Groundhog Day situation to its maximum potential, where we explore each and every kind of result or each and every kind of plot thread that would occur if the main character made different choices. And I really appreciated that, because it added for some nice drama, some like new situations, getting to explore our main character and his decisions, his behavior, his thought process more, and even his friends and family and their personalities and thought processes. The writing was, for the most part, just simple and easy to go through. I would definitely recommend this book for people who are looking to get into reading, because this is, I feel, a very accessible book. Because it has good pacing, and it is like, it almost feels like an adventure. And what is a coming of age story if not an adventure? Main characters like getting over their personal hurdles and achieving stuff in life. Like, it's an adventure, and this book definitely felt like an adventure. I appreciated that. It also delves into some topics of like having chronic illness, and it talks about sickle cell anemia, which is quite I would say it's quite prevalent in the Black community in America, if I'm not wrong. And that was something new to me too. It's also quite prevalent in India, where I live, if you didn't know. But yes, other than that, this was, it was perfectly, good. Like, I don't think I have anything to complain about. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The 5th book was Kate in Waiting by Becky Albertalli, and this one is YA contemporary again, and this one is about kids in theater. We are following Kate and her best friend. If I'm not wrong, his name was Alex. I could be forgetting his name, but Kate and Alex have these like communal crushes, which was a new concept even to me. But basically what they do is that they crush on the same boy at the same time, so that it's just like double the fun for them, because they can like gush about their feelings about this guy to each other, and they can like relate, and they can make everything a shared experience, which is something that sounds so out there and ridiculous, but at the same time makes so much sense, I think. So Kate and her best friend Alex were like just really cute and wholesome in that way. But what happens at the beginning of this book is that one of their communal crushes, who they crushed on back in summer camp, is a new student at their school, and things are getting more serious between the three of them, and Kate and Alex don't know who will end up with Matt and what will happen when one of them does actually end up with Matt. And so it's like bringing into question their friendship and how strong it is. I picked this book up mainly for like the friendship drama, because I don't know what it is, but like recently I have been wanting to read books about like friendships and like things that break them apart and bring them back together. I think that is like such a juicy topic to dive into. I don't think I have read a lot of books that does talk about it, but this book felt like one where I could get that out of it. But unfortunately this book doesn't really delve into the friendship drama that much, apart from Kate and Alex just being like really wholesome young people who are confused about their feelings and where their priorities lie, because as much as they are each other's competition for Matt's affection, they still doubt themselves and their feelings a lot, and they feel quite guilty about being the competition of their best friend. So ultimately the drama was it was like I appreciate that they stay good friends and they're good people overall, but this book doesn't really deliver on the juicy friendship drama. Even the romance itself, I would say, between the three of them, Matt and these two best friends, felt a little it just fell flat for me, because Matt just wasn't that interesting or compelling to me. He was just like a sweet guy, that's it, I guess, who was like maybe hot, I guess. And in the beginning of a book there is another character introduced as a potential love interest for Kate, and like right off the bat I knew that Kate would end up with him. He had so much more personality, he had so much more, like, he was just like such a fun and interesting character, quite the opposite of Matt, I should say, that right from the first moment I knew Kate would end up with him. And that really like made me not care about this like love triangle anymore. I was like pretty sure like, okay, this is where the plot is going. It's pretty predictable, which is not a bad thing, but it did make parts of the book boring and like just not that great in my opinion. But overall this one is if I didn't mention, this book is by Becky Albertalli. So she writes really wholesome friend groups, wholesome families, wholesome like sibling relationships. If you're looking for that in a YA novel, I would definitely recommend this book. There's a lot of good representation, with the main character being Jewish and some of the side characters being queer and stuff. I also think that Becky Albertalli does a really good job of capturing the high school experience for teenagers today. Even though I'm pretty sure she's not a teenager, I'm pretty sure she's not a teenager, but she does a really good job of like capturing that experience and making it like very relevant and feel like, yes, this is what high schoolers go through in school. Because I have read some YA books, and even though I like them, I do recognize that it just doesn't seem to be that true to what my experience was in high school. Of course, everybody has like different experiences, but I think that Becky Albertalli is probably the best at being like the most relatable to teenagers, in my opinion. So I gave this book like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was ultimately like a good, sweet, wholesome read, but otherwise a little forgettable. And so we have to talk about the last two books I read the most recently, I think. And I listened to both of them on audiobook, both of them were non-fiction, and I really loved them. But I don't think I can like really talk about them a lot, because I am not that into reading non-fiction, so I don't know what to like judge them like based on what. Also, like, I just don't think I have a lot of like value to add to these books as in like as a reviewer. Like, I just don't know what I could like talk about. Anyways, the first book is on Disfigurement and Disability by Amanda LeDuc. It has a really big title. I'll put it up on the screen because I don't remember it, but it basically it's a lot about the author's experience herself being disabled. She has cerebral palsy, and she also has depression and anxiety, if I'm not wrong. And she talks about how the world treats those who are seen as different or other, and how basically the main focus of this book is how these kind of characters are portrayed in media, specifically fairy tales and Disney fairy tales. I think this book was definitely I would say, if you're someone looking to get into nonfiction and you don't know which book to pick up, they seem intimidating or boring and dry, this book is a good one to pick up, because it does relate a lot of these like statistics and real life experiences of people with like disabilities or disfigurements. It relates them with fairy tales and folk tales, mythology, that kind of stuff. So if you're somebody who likes reading stories, I do think that this book will be like a little bit of like an extra, it'll add like an extra element of like, yes, I relate to this because I read stories too. And the author herself, I think, is definitely a lover of stories. She has also grown up with them, as she talks about in the book. So yeah, this book is a mixture of, you know, personal experiences and the author herself talking about, you know, how she grew up, the environment around her, and how people treated her, the way she saw herself in media being portrayed by the different Disney movies. So this book was a good mixture of the author talking about her own personal experiences, and also she interviewed some other people where they were talking about their experiences and their opinions on like different media portrayals and like what can be done to make you know, disabled, disfigured people more comfortable in, you know, public environments and also like personal environments. And there's also obviously the fairy tale mythology aspect, which I enjoyed quite a bit because it gave a lot of history and background to where these stories came from, how they evolved, you know, through the centuries, from like Grimm's fairy tales to Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales, a bunch of stuff. 5 stars. I don't really, like I said, I don't know what else to talk about with this book, but it was great. I got this recommendation from Books and Lala, and I definitely recommend, you know, all of you also to read it. It's quite insightful, gave a lot of new ideas. Some of them I knew about, I would say, and some of them were definitely like quite mind-blowing to me. Some of it I also related to, I would say. And the last book I read was Crying in AgeMart by Michelle Zellner, and this one is a memoir about Michelle Zellner. She is talking about her mother's death. She passed away when she was 56, when Michelle was 25, and how, you know, the whole process of grieving. Her mom had cancer, so like knowing a few months beforehand that her mom was going to pass away quite soon, and the whole, you know, just how emotionally draining it can be to care for a loved one who is ailing and sick and could potentially pass away pretty soon. Also, you know, just Michelle is also, I think, half Korean and half white, and she talks about that intersectionality too in her book, where she did not particularly feel that connected to her Korean culture, and when her mom passed away, she felt even more disconnected because her mom was her only link to Korean culture, and now she had to kind of grapple with the sense of not really knowing how to you know, connect with that side of a culture, or like how to do it exactly. And this book was, I, you know, read it via audiobook, and the narration was amazing. The author herself does it, and it was just so emotional at times. The writing was really good. It was structured in a very good way, where it not only talks about this like mother-daughter relationship, which was up and down, tumultuous, all of those things. It also just talks about you know, the author's life in general, growing up in America, you know, being biracial, different experiences she had as a kid, going to Korea once in a few years to meet her Korean relatives, and now I think she is like 31. She also got nominated for the Grammys, which is, you know, like amazing for her. Congratulations. And all of that. And I think the whole journey of this book felt it almost felt like close to home for me, even though like none of this is my experience, and I don't like know the author personally. But the fact that I felt so close to her and I got so emotional while reading the audiobook just shows how good the writing was, and the story was of course touching. Also, like, you know, I would say content warnings or trigger warnings for death, grief, those kind of stuff, xenophobia, and a bunch of other things. I would say go check out Goodreads for that. But again, 5 stars. I especially enjoyed the listening process for this one because the author has like the coolest, most beautifulest, huskiest voice ever, and yeah, her voice was just like amazing, top notch, chef's kiss. And that is it for this video. I am reading a few books currently, but it's not going too well. I'm like desperately trying to fit in a couple of more books before the end of the year, but I'm not sure if that'll happen. And I'm also hoping to post more videos, but we'll see if that also happens or not. But other than that, it was really great to sit down and chat in front of the camera about books and like gush about them, talk about them, whatever. And yeah, that is it. Goodbye. Hope you enjoyed this video. I feel like a real girl boss, like wearing this like really cool coat, which I feel like would definitely have been featured in Devil Wears Prada. But then I'm also wearing shorts, which is nice.